Jake Morrison stood in the command center of New Eden Colony, watching the morning sun rise over the golden wheat fields. 50,000 humans had called this planet home for 8 years. They had built farms, schools, hospitals, and homes. Children played in the streets while their parents worked the rich soil that fed 3 other human worlds. The communication panel beeped with an urgent message. Jake walked over and activated the screen. A blue-skinned alien appeared, wearing the formal robes of the Galactic Federation. "Colony Administrator Morrison," the alien said in perfect English. "I am Chancellor Crix of the Galactic Federation. You have 72 hours to evacuate your planet." Jake stared at the screen. "Excuse me? This is our home. We've been here for 8 years. All our papers are legal." "The Zeltharan Empire has filed a claim," Chancellor Crix continued. "They say this planet contains the sacred burial grounds of their ancestors. The Galactic Court has ruled in their favor. You must leave immediately. 72 hours? Jake's voice rose. "We have 50,000 people here. We have farms, equipment, entire cities. We need at least 6 months to move everyone safely. The ruling is final. 72 hours. The screen went black. Jake immediately called Captain Lisa Hayes, commander of the transport ship Aurora. Her worried face appeared on the screen minutes later. "Jake, I just got word from Earth Command," Lisa said. "They're ordering all human ships to stay away from your system. The Federation has declared it a no-fly zone." "They're abandoning us?" Jake couldn't believe it. "Earth doesn't want to start a war with the entire galaxy," Lisa explained. "But I'm not leaving you. The Aurora can take maybe 3,000 people per trip. If I push the engines hard, I can make 4 trips before the deadline." Jake did the math quickly. 12,000 people. Less than a quarter of the colony. "What about the other ships?" he asked. "The Federation is blocking them. Only the Aurora got through before they set up the blockade." Jake looked out the window at the city below. Children were walking to school. Parents were heading to work. None of them knew they had been sentenced to death. Dr. Paul Bennett entered the command center carrying his medical bag. "Jake, what's going on?" "I'm getting reports of panic in the residential sectors." "We have to evacuate," Jake said quietly. "The Galactic Court gave our planet to the Zeltharans." Paul's face went white. "All of us?" "Lisa can take 12,000. The rest?" Jake couldn't finish the sentence. Paul sat down heavily. "My daughter Amy is here. She's only 6 years old. She was born on this planet." Jake put his hand on Paul's shoulder. "She'll be on the first ship out. I promise." For the next 3 days, Jake worked without sleep. He organized the evacuation lists, putting children and families first. The Aurora made its 4 trips, taking 12,000 people to safety. Jake watched each ship leave, knowing he was sending them to live while he stayed to die with the 38,000 who remained. On the final day, Jake stood in the empty command center. Most of the staff had evacuated with their families. Only a few volunteers remained to help with the final preparations. They had moved the remaining population to underground shelters, hoping the concrete and metal might provide some protection. The Zeltharan fleet arrived exactly on schedule. 20 massive warships dropped out of hyperspace and took positions around the planet. Behind them came the Galactic Federation observer ships, there to make sure the legal enforcement action was carried out properly. Admiral Vextar's face appeared on every screen in the colony. The Zeltharan leader was tall and thin, with gray skin and cold black eyes. "Humans of New Eden," he said in a voice like breaking glass, "you have defiled our sacred world with your presence. The Galactic Court has ruled. You will now face the consequences of your crimes." Jake tried to contact the Federation observer ships. "This is Colony Administrator Morrison. We have civilians here. We have children. Please give us more time to evacuate." The Federation commander's reply was cold and official. "The legal process has been completed. The Galactic Federation cannot interfere with lawful enforcement actions." Jake switched to the colony-wide communication system. "This is Administrator Morrison speaking to all residents of New Eden. We are facing our final moments. I want you to know that you are not forgotten. Earth knows what is happening here. Our families know we died as free humans, building a better future among the stars." He paused, looking out at the city he had helped build. "To anyone who hears this message later, remember that we were farmers, teachers, doctors, and engineers. We came here in peace. We harmed no one. We built schools and hospitals. We grew food that fed other worlds. And for this they murdered us. The Zeltharan ships began their bombardment. Beams of energy lanced down from space, turning buildings to ash in seconds. The hospital where Dr. Bennett had delivered hundreds of babies vanished in a flash of light. The school where children had learned to read disappeared in another blast. Jake stayed at his post, broadcasting until the end. "This is Jake Morrison, final message from New Eden Colony. They are killing our children. They are murdering families in their homes. The galaxy is watching, and they call this justice." An energy beam struck the command center. Jake had 1 second to speak his final words. "Tell Earth. Tell them what they did to our children. Tell them we—" The transmission ended. Dr. Paul Bennett crouched in the underground medical facility, holding his 6-year-old daughter Amy as the ceiling shook with each explosion above. The other families around them prayed quietly or held each other tight. "Daddy, I'm scared," Amy whispered. "I know, sweetheart," Paul said, kissing the top of her head. "But remember what I taught you about being brave?" Amy nodded. "Being brave means doing what's right even when you're scared." "That's right. And you've been so brave." The explosions were getting closer. Paul picked up the emergency communicator and began recording. "This is Dr. Paul Bennett, Chief Medical Officer of New Eden Colony. If anyone receives this message, know that we died as humans. We lived with dignity and we die with dignity, but do not let our deaths be meaningless." He looked down at Amy, who had fallen asleep in his arms despite the noise. "They murdered children here today. Innocent children who never hurt anyone. The galaxy must know. Earth must know. And someday, somehow, there must be justice for what happened here." The final explosion collapsed the medical facility. New Eden Colony was no more. 50,000 humans were dead. The galaxy watched, and the galaxy did nothing. But in the depths of space, human ships recorded every moment of the massacre. They watched their people die, and they remembered every detail. Earth would know. Earth would remember, and Earth would respond. The aliens had just made the worst mistake in galactic history. They had killed humanity's children, and they thought there would be no consequences. They were wrong. President Helen Carter sat in the White House Situation Room, staring at the reports spread across the table. 6 weeks had passed since the New Eden massacre, and the images still haunted her dreams. 50,000 Americans murdered while the galaxy watched and called it legal. Admiral Roy Jackson, head of the Earth Defense Fleet, entered the room carrying more bad news. His weathered face looked older than his 60 years. "Madam President, we've lost contact with 3 more colonies. The Federation has declared them disputed territories and ordered immediate evacuation." Helen rubbed her temples. "How many people?" 80,000 on New California, 60,000 on Liberty Station, 45,000 on the agricultural world of Harvest. "That's nearly 200,000 Americans," Helen said quietly. "They're driving us out of space system by system." Secretary of Defense Bill Thompson leaned forward. "The Joint Chiefs are recommending we fight. Our fleet is strong enough to protect at least some of our colonies. Against the entire Galactic Federation?" Roy shook his head. "They have 12,000 species backing them. We'd be fighting a war against the entire galaxy." Helen stood and walked to the window, looking out at the peaceful streets of Washington. Children were playing in parks, going to school, living normal lives. They had no idea their government was planning something that would change the course of human history. "What about the Prometheus project?" she asked quietly. Admiral Jackson and Secretary Thompson exchanged glances. Few people knew about the secret research program hidden deep beneath Cheyenne Mountain. "Dr. Sam Rodriguez says they're ready," Roy replied. "But once we activate it, there's no going back. The galaxy will never see us the same way again." Helen thought about the children of New Eden, vaporized from orbit while their parents tried to protect them. She thought about little Amy Bennett, who died in her father's arms in an underground bunker. She thought about Jake Morrison, broadcasting until his final second, begging the galaxy to remember that humans were people too. "Contact Dr. Rodriguez," she said. "Tell him he has authorization to begin Phase 1. 3 days later, Dr. Sam Rodriguez stood in the massive underground facility known as Prometheus Research Division. Banks of computers hummed quietly while technicians worked at stations throughout the chamber. For 15 years, ever since first contact with the Galactic Federation, human scientists had been preparing for this day. "Dr. Rodriguez," called out Dr. Jennifer Walsh, his second in command. "The nanofabrication units are online. We can begin mass production immediately." Sam nodded. Begin production of the Reaper-class vessels. I want the first batch ready in 2 weeks. Jennifer looked concerned. Sir, are you sure about this? Once we deploy the Reapers, we'll be committed to total warfare. They murdered our children, Jennifer, Sam said quietly. They killed 50,000 innocent people while the galaxy watched and applauded. If they want to see what monsters look like, we'll show them. The Reaper project had been humanity's deepest secret. Using nanotechnology that could build ships from raw materials in space, they could create a fleet that would grow exponentially. Each Reaper ship could construct 2 more ships from asteroids and space debris. Those ships could build 4 more, then 8, then 16. Within months, they could have thousands of ships where before they had dozens. But the Reapers were just the beginning. Dr. Casey Morgan, head of the Biological Warfare Division, approached Sam with a data pad. The neural interface virus is ready for deployment. We can transmit it through standard communication channels. Any alien species that uses Federation communication networks will be vulnerable. Sam studied the data. The virus would give humans control over alien nervous systems, turning their own militaries against them. It was a weapon so terrible that Sam had hoped they would never need to use it. Deploy it to all Zeltharan communication networks, he ordered. Let them be the test case. Meanwhile, in space, something strange was happening. Human ships had stopped leaving the Sol system. Trade convoys that once carried goods to distant worlds simply vanished. The few human colonies that remained went silent, their communication networks going dark one by one. To the galaxy, it looked like humanity was retreating in fear. The Galactic Federation issued statements praising the peaceful resolution of the human problem. Several species began filing claims for former human territories, eager to claim the valuable mining worlds and agricultural planets that humans had developed. The Zeltharan Empire celebrated their victory. Admiral Vextar gave speeches about how they had shown the galaxy that humans were not as strong as they pretended to be. Other species took note that humans could be eliminated without serious consequences. Captain Elena Martinez commanded the stealth ship Shadow of Earth, invisible to all alien sensors as it drifted through Zeltharan space. Her ship was one of 50 similar vessels now positioned throughout the galaxy, using technology reverse-engineered from captured alien equipment and improved with human innovation. Captain, reported Lieutenant Danny Foster from the sensor station, we've mapped their entire fleet deployment. 47 major bases, 12 shipyards, and the homeworld defense grid. Elena studied the tactical display. Any sign they know we're here? None, ma'am. As far as they know, all human ships retreated to Earth months ago. Elena smiled grimly. Let them think that. Let them believe they had frightened humanity into submission. Soon enough, they would learn the truth. On Earth, President Carter received daily reports from the observation ships. The aliens had no idea that human technology had advanced far beyond what they had shown the galaxy. 15 years of secretly studying alien equipment had given humanity capabilities that no other species possessed. Madam President, Admiral Jackson said during their morning briefing, the last evacuation ship has arrived from the outer colonies. All American civilians are now safely within the Sol system. Helen nodded. They had pulled their people back, not in retreat, but to protect them from what was coming. Every human colony had been quietly evacuated over the past 3 months, with the populations relocated to hidden bases throughout the solar system. What's the status of the fleet? Production is ahead of schedule. We now have over 2,000 Reaper ships with more coming online every day. Each ship is equipped with molecular disruptors that can take apart alien vessels at the atomic level. Helen thought about the choice before her. She could still call this off. She could try to find a diplomatic solution. But then she remembered the images from New Eden, the children who died screaming as energy beams turned their homes to ash. How long until we're ready? She asked. Dr. Rodriguez says 2 more weeks for final testing. After that, we can begin the operation. Helen signed the authorization order. Then in 2 weeks, the galaxy learns what happens when you murder human children. The alien species continued their celebrations, dividing up human territory and congratulating themselves on solving the human problem so easily. They held conferences about the effectiveness of their legal system and the importance of respecting galactic law. None of them noticed the growing number of dark objects drifting through the space between stars. Ships that didn't appear on any sensors, carrying weapons that could unmake matter itself. Ships crewed by humans who had watched their people die and waited patiently for their moment of revenge. The galaxy was about to learn that humans didn't just fight wars. When their children were threatened, humans became war itself. And this war would not end until justice was served, no matter how many alien worlds had to burn to achieve it. The silence from humanity was not fear. It was preparation. And soon, very soon, that silence would be broken by the sound of 50,000 human voices crying out for justice from beyond the grave. 3 months after the New Eden massacre, alien intelligence networks began detecting strange signals from the Sol system. Commander Zephrol of the Galactic Federation Intelligence Division studied the reports with growing concern. The energy signatures don't make sense, his analyst, Lieutenant Vexelin, explained. Human industrial output has increased by 300%, but we're detecting no ship movements in or out of their system. Zephrol examined the data on his screen. Massive mining operations were working around the clock in Earth's asteroid belt. Energy production had tripled, yet no human ships had been seen in galactic space for months. What are they building? He wondered aloud. Unknown, sir. Their communication networks are completely encrypted now. We can't break their codes. Zephrol felt a chill run down his spine. In his 40 years of intelligence work, he had never seen a species simply vanish from galactic affairs like this. Humans had gone from active participants in galactic politics to complete silence in a matter of months. Captain Elena Martinez floated in the cramped bridge of the Shadow of Earth, watching the Zeltharan homeworld of Veltar through her ship's advanced sensors. Her vessel was one of dozens of invisible human ships now positioned throughout Zeltharan space, mapping every military installation, every fleet position, every possible target, Captain, whispered Sergeant Mike Chen from the communication station. We're picking up increased chatter from their military networks. They're talking about missing outposts. Elena pulled up the intelligence reports on her screen. Over the past month, 7 remote Zeltharan bases had gone silent. Investigation teams found the facilities intact but completely abandoned, with no signs of battle or struggle. Any pattern to the disappearances? She asked. All communication hubs, ma'am. Places that relay messages across their empire. Elena smiled coldly. Dr. Rodriguez's neural virus was working perfectly. Transmitted through routine communication channels, it had been quietly spreading through Zeltharan space for weeks. The affected aliens simply walked away from their posts, their minds no longer their own. On the Zeltharan capital world, Admiral Vextar paced in his command center, trying to understand the reports from his field commanders. His aide, Colonel Thexmar, stood nervously nearby. Explain to me again how an entire base just empties itself, Vextar demanded. Sir, the security recordings show personnel performing their normal duties, then suddenly stopping their work and walking to their ships. They left in perfect order, but their faces... Thexmar paused. Their faces were blank, sir. Like they weren't really there anymore. Vextar felt a growing unease. Have we determined where they went? No, sir. The ship simply flew out into deep space and disappeared. We found no trace of them. Across the galaxy, similar reports were reaching alien intelligence agencies. The humans had gone silent. But strange things were happening wherever they had once maintained diplomatic relations. Communication networks experienced brief glitches. Long-range sensors occasionally detected objects that vanished before they could be properly identified. Dr. Sam Rodriguez stood in the Prometheus facility, watching the final assembly of humanity's secret weapon. Major Alex Turner, recently promoted to oversee fleet operations, joined him at the observation window. The first wave of Reaper destroyers is ready for deployment, Alex reported. 5,000 ships, each capable of self-replication using raw materials in space. Sam nodded, studying the sleek black vessels floating in the construction bays. Each ship was barely 50 meters long, but packed with technology that the galaxy had never seen. Molecular disruptors that could take apart enemy vessels at the atomic level, stealth systems that made them invisible to all known sensors, self-replicating nanotechnology that could build new ships from asteroids and space debris. How long until we reach full operational strength? Sam asked. At current replication rates, we'll have 50,000 ships within 6 weeks. Each ship can construct 2 more vessels every 72 hours using available materials. Sam did the math. 50,000 ships would become 100,000, then 200,000, then 400,000. Within months, humanity would command the largest fleet in galactic history. And the crews? Neural interface technology lets each ship operate with a crew of 12 instead of the usual 300. We've trained 15,000 volunteers from the military and civilian space services. Sam thought about those volunteers. Each one had watched the New Eden recordings. Each one had seen human children murdered while the galaxy applauded. They were no longer soldiers fighting for territory or resources. They were instruments of justice, carrying the weight of 50,000 dead souls. President Helen Carter received her daily briefing in the secure underground bunker beneath the White House. Admiral Roy Jackson reported on fleet readiness while Secretary Thompson provided updates on alien intelligence gathering. The Galactic Federation is getting nervous, Thompson said. They're asking their member species to report any unusual activity in their territories. Good, Helen replied. Let them worry. How are our people handling the isolation? Roy pulled up population reports. Better than expected, Madam President. The families evacuated from the outer colonies have been integrated into lunar and Mars colonies. Morale is high. Everyone understands why we're doing this, Helen nodded. The hardest part had been pulling back from galactic civilization completely. No trade, no diplomacy, no contact of any kind. But it was necessary. What they were planning would work only if the enemy believed humanity had retreated in defeat. What about our intelligence assets? Captain Martinez and her team have provided complete tactical data on Zeltharan military positions. We know the location of every major base, every fleet concentration, every defensive installation. Helen studied the star charts showing Zeltharan space, 97 inhabited worlds, home to nearly 50 billion aliens. Soon every one of those worlds would understand what happened when you murdered human children. When do we begin? Dr. Rodriguez estimates another 2 weeks for final preparations. After that, we can initiate the operation at your command. Helen thought about Jake Morrison, broadcasting until his final moments, begging the galaxy to remember that humans were people too. She thought about Dr. Paul Bennett, holding his daughter as their world burned around them. She thought about 50,000 innocent people who died because aliens decided human lives didn't matter. 2 weeks, she agreed. Then we show them what human justice looks like. In the depths of space, the Reaper fleet continued to grow. Ships built other ships, which built more ships, creating an exponentially expanding armada hidden in the darkness between stars. Each vessel carried the most advanced weapons humanity had ever created, crewed by volunteers who had sworn an oath to avenge the dead of New Eden. Captain Lisa Hayes, now commanding the stealth destroyer Vengeance, floated near the edge of Zeltharan space with her task force. Her ship had evacuated 12,000 people from New Eden in those final days. She had watched the rest die from orbit, powerless to help them. Ma'am, reported her tactical officer, Lieutenant Eric Stone. Long-range sensors are detecting movement from the Zeltharan home fleet. Looks like they're conducting routine patrol sweeps. Lisa studied the enemy formations, powerful ships armed with weapons that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries. The same ships that had burned New Eden to ash while their crews celebrated. How many ships in their home fleet? 247 major vessels plus support craft. Lisa smiled. In 2 weeks, her small task force alone would outnumber the entire Zeltharan military. The aliens had no idea what was coming for them. The galaxy continued its normal routine, believing the human problem had been solved. The Galactic Federation issued statements about the effectiveness of their legal system. The Zeltharan Empire expanded into former human territories, claiming mining rights and agricultural worlds. None of them noticed the shadows gathering in the dark. None of them understood that humanity's silence was not surrender but preparation. None of them realized they had awakened something terrible in their quest to eliminate human expansion. The children of New Eden cried out for justice from their graves, and humanity had heard their call. Soon, very soon, that justice would be delivered with interest. The galaxy was about to learn why humans were the most dangerous species among the stars, not because they were naturally violent, but because they were the only species that truly understood that some crimes could never be forgiven. The storm was coming, and it would wash away everything that stood in its path. The attack began at exactly 0600 Earth Standard Time, across 97 Zeltharan worlds simultaneously. It was not a battle. It was the systematic dismantling of an entire empire, carried out with surgical precision and overwhelming force. Admiral Vextar woke in his command center on Veltar to the sound of alarms blaring throughout the building. He stumbled to the main display, trying to understand what his officers were shouting about. "Sir, we're receiving reports from across the Empire. Colonel Thexmar said, his voice shaking. Our bases are under attack, but we can't see who's attacking them. Vexitar stared at the tactical display showing Zeltharon space. Red warning lights were appearing on every major world, every military installation, every fleet concentration. But the sensor showed nothing. No enemy ships, no incoming missiles, no sign of any attacking force. That's impossible. Get me a direct line to base command on Zephyr 3. The communication screen flickered to life, showing chaos in a Zeltharan command center. Officers were firing their weapons at each other while others stood motionless, their eyes blank and staring. In the background, explosions were tearing through the walls of the facility. What's happening there? Vextar demanded. The officer on screen turned toward the camera. His face was completely emotionless, his eyes unfocused. The humans are here, he said in a flat, mechanical voice. They have come for their children. The screen went black. Captain Elena Martinez watched from her invisible ship as the Zeltharan orbital defense platforms around Veltar began destroying each other. The neural virus had reached critical mass throughout their military networks, turning their own forces against themselves. Ma'am, reported Lieutenant Danny Foster, Zeltharan fleet units are engaging each other across the system. Their command structure has completely collapsed. Elena activated her communication system, broadcasting to the growing human fleet that was decloaking throughout Zeltharan space. All units, this is Shadow Leader. Begin Phase 2. Target military installations only. Civilian areas are off limits. The Reaper destroyers appeared from the darkness like ghosts materializing from nothing. Thousands of sleek black ships, each one carrying weapons that could dismantle matter at the molecular level. They had been building themselves in the empty space between stars for months, growing from dozens to thousands to tens of thousands. On Veltar, Admiral Vextar watched in horror as his orbital defense platform simply dissolved. The metal and ceramic structures came apart like sandcastles in the wind, their atoms separating and drifting away into space. How are they doing this? He whispered. His aide, one of the few officers still under his own control, pointed at the main display. Sir, look. Thousands of ships were appearing around Veltar, ships unlike anything in the galactic databases. They were small, barely 50 meters long, but they moved with impossible grace and precision. And they were everywhere. Commander Rick Foster, now serving as Admiral Jackson's tactical coordinator, broadcast on all Federation frequencies from his flagship Retribution. His voice carried across the galaxy, reaching every alien world, every space station, every ship. This is Commander Foster of the Human Defense Fleet. 6 months ago, you watched as the Zeltharan Empire murdered 50,000 innocent human colonists. You called it justice. You applauded it as the rule of law. Today, you learn what human justice looks like. On the Galactic Federation capital world of Nova Prime, Chancellor Crix watched the reports flooding in from Zeltharan space with growing panic. His military advisors were shouting conflicting orders, while communication officers tried desperately to raise any Zeltharan command authority. How many ships are attacking them? Crix asked. We don't know, sir, replied General Morthan. Our long-range sensors are detecting energy signatures consistent with 50,000 vessels. But that's impossible. The humans had barely 300 ships 6 months ago. Crix felt his blood turn cold. Get me a direct line to Earth, now. Sir, Earth has maintained complete communication silence for 3 months. They're not responding to any diplomatic channels. Then get me the Federation fleet, all of it. We need to intervene before this spreads beyond Zeltharan space. The Federation assembled their largest battle fleet in galactic history, 12,000 ships from 200 different species, carrying enough firepower to devastate entire solar systems. They jumped into Zeltharan space, expecting to face a desperate human assault that could be quickly crushed. What they found was an alien empire that no longer existed. Every Zeltharan military base had been dismantled, their molecules scattered into space. Every warship had been reduced to its component atoms. The orbital shipyards that had built the Zeltharan fleet for centuries were gone, leaving only empty space where massive industrial facilities had once operated, but the planets remained untouched. The cities were intact. The civilian population was unharmed. Only military targets had been eliminated, with surgical precision that should have been impossible. Admiral Torvek of the Federation fleet tried to contact the human ships. Human vessels, this is Admiral Torvek of the Galactic Federation. Cease your attack immediately and withdraw from this system. Commander Foster's response was broadcast to every ship in the Federation fleet. Admiral, you are witnessing the consequences of murdering human children. The Zeltharan military has been eliminated. Their government has been dissolved. This is what happens to those who harm innocents under our protection. The Galactic Court ordered the evacuation of New Eden. Torvik protested. It was a legal action under Federation law. Your law failed to protect 50,000 innocent people, Foster replied. Human law does not recognize that failure. Stand down, Admiral. This does not concern the Federation unless you choose to make it concern you. Torvik looked at his tactical display. His 12,000 ships were outnumbered 4-1 by vessels that had just dismantled an entire empire in a matter of hours. Ships that appeared and disappeared at will, using technology that seemed to violate the basic laws of physics. Sir, his tactical officer whispered, energy readings indicate these human ships can replicate themselves using raw materials. They're not just ships. They're factory ships, self-building war machines. Torvik realized the full horror of what he was facing. This wasn't just a military assault. This was a new form of warfare that could spread exponentially, building more ships faster than any traditional fleet could be constructed. All Federation ships, he announced on the command frequency, maintain defensive positions but do not engage. I repeat, do not engage the human fleet. On Earth, President Helen Carter watched the operation unfold from the Situation Room. Admiral Roy Jackson provided real-time updates while Dr. Sam Rodriguez monitored the technical aspects of the assault. 97 Zeltharan worlds have been occupied, Roy reported. All military resistance has been eliminated. Civilian casualties are 0. Helen nodded. That had been the most important part of the plan. This was not genocide. This was justice. The Zeltharan military that had murdered human children was gone, but their people would live. What's the status of the Federation response? Their fleet is holding position but not engaging. They're smart enough to recognize they're outgunned. Dr. Rodriguez looked up from his displays. Ma'am, the replication systems are working perfectly. We now have over 200,000 ships in Zeltharan space, with more coming online every hour. Helen thought about the children of New Eden, about little Amy Bennett who died in her father's arms. Send a message to all Federation worlds. Tell them the Zeltharan Empire no longer exists. Their worlds are now under human administration. Any species that threatens human colonies or other peaceful civilizations will face the same fate. Captain Lisa Hayes stood on the bridge of her ship, watching former Zeltharan military officers being processed by human personnel. They would be relocated to reservation worlds, primitive planets where they could live under human supervision, not as slaves but as a reminder that actions have consequences. Ma'am, reported Lieutenant Eric Stone, we're receiving surrender requests from Zeltharan civilian governments across the Empire. Lisa nodded. Accept their surrenders. Guarantee their safety as long as they cooperate with our transition teams. She looked out at the space where the massive Zeltharan fleet had once been stationed. Nothing remained but empty vacuum and the growing human armada that had replaced it. In 6 hours, humanity had gone from refugees hiding in their home system to the dominant military power in the galaxy. The message was spreading across alien space at the speed of light. Humanity had returned, and they had returned as something the galaxy had never seen before. Not conquerors seeking territory, not raiders seeking wealth, but judges seeking justice for crimes against the innocent. The children of New Eden had been avenged. 50,000 innocent deaths had been answered, with the complete elimination of the military force responsible for their murder. But this was only the beginning. The galaxy was about to learn that humans did not simply fight wars or conquer territory. When their children were threatened, humans became something far more dangerous. They became justice itself, terrible and inevitable, following the guilty to the ends of space and time. And for those who harmed the innocent under human protection, 6 months after the fall of the Zeltharan Empire, the galaxy had changed forever. The massive Galactic Federation building on Nova Prime sat empty, its halls silent except for the footsteps of human security teams. In its place, the human colonial authority had established new laws, new boundaries, and new rules for galactic civilization. Ambassador Kate Williams walked into the former Federation Council chambers, her footsteps echoing in the vast space. Representatives from 300 alien species sat in the curved rows of seats, waiting to hear how their galaxy would now be governed. The fear in their eyes was obvious, but so was something else. Hope. Kate reached the central podium and looked out at the assembled delegates. These were the same species that had applauded when human children were murdered, the same governments that had called the New Eden massacre a legal enforcement action. Now they waited to learn their fate from the species they had tried to eliminate. Representatives of the galaxy, Kate began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. 6 months ago, your governments made a choice. You chose to support the systematic murder of 50,000 innocent human colonists. You chose to call it justice when children were burned alive in their homes. You chose to applaud when families were vaporized from orbit. The chamber remained silent. No one dared to speak. Today, you learn the consequences of that choice, Kate continued. The Galactic Federation is dissolved. The laws that permitted the murder of innocents are abolished. In their place, the human colonial authority will govern galactic affairs according to a simple principle: the protection of peaceful civilizations from those who would harm them. She activated the holographic display behind her, showing a map of the galaxy divided into new territorial zones. Species that demonstrate their commitment to peace will be granted autonomy to govern themselves. Those that show aggression toward human colonies or other peaceful races will face immediate intervention. Ambassador Zefkol of the Centauri Union raised his hand tentatively. Kate nodded for him to speak. Ambassador Williams, he said carefully, what guarantees do we have that humans will not abuse this power as others have before you? Kate's expression softened slightly. You have the guarantee of our actions, Ambassador. When we dismantled the Zelthran military, we could have eliminated their entire species. Instead, we relocated them to worlds where they can live in peace under our protection. When we occupied their territories, we could have enslaved their populations. Instead, we provided medical care, education, and economic assistance to help them rebuild their lives. She paused, letting that sink in. We do not seek to rule you, Ambassador. We seek to protect the innocent. If your species commits no crimes against peaceful civilizations, you will never see our fleet in your skies. Former Federation Admiral Kethmore of the Rigel Systems asked the question that haunted every alien leader in the room. How? How did you build such power so quickly? 6 months ago, humanity was retreating from galactic space. Now you command fleets that dwarf anything we've ever seen. Kate smiled sadly. You made a fundamental error, Admiral. You assumed we were like you. You thought we would fight as you fight, think as you think, respond as you respond. You forgot that humans are not failed Galactic Federation citizens who happen to be born on Earth. We are humans. The display behind her changed to show images from human history. Soldiers storming beaches under machine gun fire. Scientists working around the clock to cure diseases. Engineers building impossible structures in hostile environments. Parents sacrificing everything to protect their children. We don't just fight wars, Admiral. When our children are threatened, we become war itself. We don't just build ships. We become shipbuilders, turning entire solar systems into construction facilities. We don't just seek victory. We become victory, reshaping reality until justice is served. She looked directly at Admiral Kethmore. You killed our children thinking there would be no consequences. You learned too late that humans have never accepted no consequences as an answer to murdered innocents. The chamber remained silent as delegates absorbed the implications of her words. Several species had already submitted requests to join the new human colonial authority as protected members. Others were quietly withdrawing their territorial claims from disputed systems, rather than risk confrontation with human forces. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, now serving as Director of Galactic Reconstruction, approached the podium with a datapad. Ambassador, we're receiving the final surrender documents from the former Zeltharan provincial governors. All 97 worlds have agreed to the new administrative structure. Kate nodded. The former Zeltharan Empire was now a collection of peaceful agricultural and mining worlds, their populations living under human protection. The warrior culture that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries had been replaced by farmers, teachers, and engineers working to rebuild their civilization according to principles of peace. What about their military officers? She asked quietly. Relocated to the reservation worlds as planned. They're being provided with everything they need for a comfortable life, but they'll never command military forces again. Kate thought about Admiral Vextar, who now spent his days teaching Zeltharan children about the history of their species, while human supervisors ensured he could never again order the murder of innocents. Justice, not revenge. President Helen Carter's voice reached Kate through her secure communicator. Kate, how are they responding to the new order? Better than expected, Madam President. Most species are genuinely relieved to have protection from aggressive neighbors. The Thornax Confederation officially requested membership this morning. And the holdouts? Kate glanced at her datapad. 3 species are still maintaining hostile postures. The Crag Dominion, the Vorthan Empire, and the Shadow Fleet. But our intelligence suggests they're more concerned with internal power struggles than challenging us directly. Helen's response was firm.
Make it clear that any aggression against peaceful species will be met with immediate intervention.
We're not interested in conquest, but we won't tolerate another New Eden. Captain Elena Martinez, now promoted to Admiral and commanding the Stealth Reconnaissance Division, monitored potential threats from her flagship Hidden Justice. Her invisible ships watched every aggressive species in the galaxy, ready to provide early warning if any of them decided to test human resolve. Admiral, reported Commander Danny Foster, the Crag Dominion is moving fleet units toward the Altair system. Intelligence suggests they're planning to claim the abandoned mining stations there. Elena studied the tactical display. The Altair system had been evacuated during the chaos following the Zeltharan collapse. Several refugee populations were sheltering there under temporary human protection. How many ships? 47 major vessels, including 3 battlecruisers. Elena smiled coldly. Inform President Carter that the Crag Dominion is about to receive an object lesson in the new galactic order. Deploy Task Force 7 to intercept them. Within hours, the Crag fleet found themselves surrounded by ships that had appeared from empty space. The Crag commander, Admiral Thekfor, tried to bluster his way out of the situation. Human ships, you have no authority in this system. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. The response came from Captain Mike Chen, commanding the destroyer Swift Justice. Admiral Thekfor, you are approaching a system under human protection with hostile intent. You have 30 seconds to reverse course or your fleet will be disabled and your crew relocated to a reservation world. You cannot threaten the sovereign forces of the Crag Dominion, Thekfor snarled. 20 seconds, Chen replied calmly. The Crag Admiral looked at his tactical display. 50 human ships surrounded his 47 vessels, but that wasn't what terrified him. What terrified him was remembering what had happened to the Zeltharan fleet. The most powerful military force in the galaxy had been reduced to scattered atoms in a matter of hours. All Crag ships, he announced reluctantly. Reverse course. We are returning to Dominion space. Wise choice, Admiral, Chen replied. The next time you consider threatening peaceful populations, remember that human justice is not delayed. It is inevitable. The story of the Crag fleet's retreat spread across the galaxy within days. Species that had been planning territorial expansions quietly canceled their operations. Aggressive governments began negotiating peaceful settlements to long-standing disputes, rather than risk attracting human attention. On Earth, in the quiet cemetery overlooking the Potomac River, a new memorial had been built. 50,000 names were etched in black granite, representing every person who died in the New Eden massacre. Below them, a simple inscription: "They were our children. We did not forget." Families came here every day to remember the dead and to understand why the galaxy had changed. Children asked their parents why the aliens had killed human families, and the parents explained that some people chose evil over good, but that evil would always face consequences. Dr. Sam Rodriguez, now retired from the Prometheus Project, often walked among the memorial stones. He thought about the weapons he had created, the technology that had reshaped galactic civilization in a matter of months. Sometimes he wondered if they had gone too far, if justice had become vengeance.